And just like that, she's 16 years old. This morning I woke up and it was very early before the sun actually came out, because probably about 2 or 3 months ago, probably 4 months ago, I started looking for a car with my daughter. And we started looking at pictures, but we were just, kind of look shopping is what my pops would call it when I was growing up, looking in the Trade Express or the Auto Trader, and it was an actual physical magazine. But we started looking at these things, and I started to kind of focus in on it. And about 2 months ago, I found the exact one, the exact color, the exact year, all the things that she had talked about she wanted. And so I found it in Utah, and I went out and I actually bought it, put it at our house there. It sat there for a month. But every single day I woke up and I was like, man, I want to give it to her. I want to give it to her. I know that I have it. And there was times where, she would be a little snotty to me or whatever. And I would be like, oh man, you don't know. You don't even realize, like, I got this, we've got this amazing gift that we're going to give to you on your birthday. And then, about a month ago, I brought it here to Carlsbad and parked it in the garage, and I've just been waiting. And this morning when I woke up, I was anticipating, like, every second. I can't wait to be able to give it to her. How are we going to give it to her? We were planning it out, pictures and doing all this stuff. And, she walked out, and huge smile on her face. She got to hang with her friend. She got a little convertible top, got to drive with her friend this morning. She was so happy. And I just had the biggest smile on my face. And, what I realized this morning is, as I sat down to spend a little bit of quiet time with God, is he was saying, that's how I feel every single day. And I was like, well, what do you mean, God? And he said, that's how I feel every day, because I've got all these blessings stored up. I've got them set aside. I know exactly what I'm going to give to you. And they're the desires that you have, but sometimes they're not on your timing. But I've got all these things, so why are you tripping? That's what he was saying to me this morning. And, I had that feeling and, of like the anticipation, wanting to give the gift. And see, through Proverbs 12, God wants us to know that he feels the same way about us, about the unbelievable blessings that he has in store for us. And so what I want to encourage you today is, God is not a God of, punishing you when you did wrong, figuring out what you did wrong and waiting until the ball drops or another shoe drops or whatever it is. He's not looking for that. What he's looking for is for you to calm down, chill out, and realize that all the blessings, all the things that you desire are sitting sometimes in a garage that you can't see, and he's just waiting to bring them, but he's going to bring them on his time. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
The feeling that I have right now, I wish every single person could feel this. I'm sure that you do at some point when you have a friend, a relative, just a person in your life that you buy a gift for, and you're excited to be able to give the gift. It's actually, you're probably more excited to give the gift than they are to receive it. They receive it and you're kind of like, but the anticipation of that is probably one of the greatest things in the world, especially around the holiday season and things like that. So I want to invite you to realize that, that's exactly how God feels every single day of every moment of your life, every second of your life, every hour of your life, that he wants to, when he says he wants to bless you, he's already going to bless you. You just wait. Like sometimes it's not the time. And so with Proverbs 12, it drives home like that God wants us to know that he feels the same way about the unbelievable blessings that he has in store for each and every one of us. All right. And that's hard to imagine. Imagine the greatest gift that you could ever give to the most valuable person in your life. And then think of that, like God is sitting in that every single day and he wants to bless you every single day. And as I sat in that, I jumped into Proverbs 12, and it was unbelievable. So I want to thank you guys for, watching the podcast or listening, subscribing, commenting, and sharing. It's one of the greatest, I guess you would say, compliments that you could ever give. We did start the Substack also. Substack, I released it yesterday to say that the first 10 people that subscribe, so there's a yearly subscription that you can do. It's very minimal, but when you do that and you subscribe to it, the first 10 people that subscribe to it are going to get the Vibe Experience, which is a full day of, it's unbelievable. We're going to go through your heart, your mind, and your skills, and that's going to be with myself, with Baron Baptiste, and with Coach Keith Hale. It's going to be an unbelievable day, and then it'll culminate later on that day. That evening is going to be the Vibe Room, and so that's going to be April 11th in Salt Lake City, and you'll get a ticket to it. You'll have to get your transportation and lodging, but with the Substack, it's again very minimal investment, but also too you'll get my handwritten notes on the podcast, and that way you'll be able to kind of follow along. And the reason why I did them in my own handwriting is because most of the time people, the start stops them. They want things to be perfect. And what my pops taught me from a very early age is with my handwriting, even though it wasn't the greatest handwriting in the world, it was mine and it was my art and it was personalized to me. And so I want to encourage people to see that to start and to move through, it doesn't have to be perfect. My handwriting's not perfect. Sometimes I misspell things or, put a period or a comma in a different place, but I want this to be a note from me to you as we go through these things as far as the study of it. So I want to thank you guys for that, and thank you guys again for tuning in. It really, really means the world to me. There's 3 shows on the podcast, as you know, if you're a listener, and a subscriber if you're new to this. Inchstones is daily wisdom that we do, and then we also do I interview some of the most iconic people in the world. They give advice to my kids by name. And I also have a show that is called You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live and call my friends randomly. So you can tune in for any of those. But Inchstones, like today, is about 15 to 20 minutes. You can take us on your walk. It fills your soul. We're working on building the heart. And what the heart is, the heart set is your belief system. And so when you root it and ground it in wisdom, and we do it in 3,000-year-old wisdom, it's amazing what can happen as a foundation. So let's jump into Proverbs 12. And this one was amazing because it was, again, talking about the emphasis was, all the gifts that God has waiting for you and how excited he is to be able to give them to you. He's not that God that's standing over the top of you waiting for you to do something wrong so he could punish you. And sometimes that's the way that we see him. But I find that most of the time, the way that we envision God is generally the interaction of, a lot of times sometimes the negative people in our life. So if our dad or our mom or our uncle or our aunt or grandma or grandpa was lording over us kind of, heavy-handed, sometimes we think God is that too, and we put God in that image, and what he wants to do is debunk that and help you to realize that he's the one that has all the blessings, and he's so excited to be able to give them to you. So in verse 1 and 5 of Proverbs 12, right correction is more valuable than wrong praise. Sit in that one for a second, right? And so I was like, no, sometimes I just want some wrong praise. I don't care if it's the right praise, wrong praise. I just want to be praised. But imagine this, right correction, when we invite discipline into our life, when we have right correction. And he says that even the hardest right correction, is more valuable than the wrong praise. And so be conscious of that. In verse 1 and 15, it emphasizes it. In verse 2 and 5 and 21, is a thing that my wife says to me all the time. It always works out. Like, it always works out. I told her about an idea because we're doing the Vibe Experience there in Salt Lake City at the Edison House, April 11th. And we haven't released tickets yet, but it will sell out very quickly once we do. But when I told her that, I said, I have this idea. The next Vibe Experience, the ultimate one, there's a hotel in Carlsbad, and I want to buy out the whole entire hotel, and we'll do the Vibe Experience at that. And it's one of the most premier hotels in Carlsbad. And she just looked at me and she was like, okay, not surprised, not like, oh my gosh, what if? She was just like, no, it always works out. But you know what she told me? She said, Like, it's going to be faith to faith, glory to glory. It's not going to be from 1 to 100. It's going to be from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And that's how it's going to build. And so she's very calm in this, but she's super, super, super wise. If you're not following my wife, Kelly Cardenas, on Instagram, go do it. It freaks her out when I say that, because then people follow her and she's like, what's happening? But she is honestly one of the wisest and most hardest working women that you'll ever meet in your life. In verse 3, 7, and 12 is the unseen foundation is better than the praised sand. And so, when you build your life on a firm foundation, and we like to choose wisdom, right? So imagine that, the right use of knowledge. If you built your life on wisdom and you filtered every single thing through wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge, you did that. What could things start to look like, right? What could decisions like to be? I mean, I wish that I would have known that. Well, if I would have known it at 21, I probably wouldn't have used it anyway. In verse 3, 7, and 12, the unseen foundation is better than the praised sand. In verse 4, honored relationships will pay dividends. I hear this a lot, that it talks about like a good wife is more valuable than, gold and silver. And God revealed to me yesterday that he was talking about a wife, obviously like physical and doing that literally, but he was also talking about it figuratively. And he says that, like that marriage, like anytime there's a marriage and that bridegroom, and he speaks about himself as the bridegroom, if that's the case, then we are in that relationship with him, and he wants us to honor that. And so when he talks about, in Proverbs, he talks about adultery. It's not just about, in a marriage, it's anything that you put before him. Right? Anything that you put before the commitment that you made, and that commitment is to him. So, honored relationships will pay dividends. And this means in business, it means in regular relationships and friendships and all over. When you honor those relationships and you honor them at the highest level, and the decisions that you make, you filter them through wisdom, it's unbelievable what can happen. And that's in verse 4. In verse 6, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 22 is your words have power. Every one of us, our words have power. So choose them wisely, and also filter them. So filter them through, right? And think of that verse that saying, choose wisely, choose wisely. How can we choose wisely? By filtering it through wisdom. What is wisdom? The right use of knowledge. Where do we get that? The beginning of it is the fear of God. The fear of God is just the respect of him. When we spend time with him and we see his words, his actions, they're in line. Guess what happens? We respect him. So that's the beginning of wisdom. But your words have power, so choose them wisely as much as possible. This was in verse 6, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 22, so it's pretty important in this proverb. In verse 8, 16, and 23, if you know the blessing is on the way, your joy will be endless. This one was a tough one for me to swallow, right? Because joy is the art of falling in love with your current circumstances and allowing magic to happen. And my joy will be endless, meaning that I can go through any circumstance and my attitude will be great if I know the blessing's on the way. Imagine this. Imagine like when you started, and I remember I built the first house that I built. When I went there and I just saw the foundation, it was just the foundation. I was so excited about it. No one else could see it. No one else could understand it, but I was so excited. I knew the blessing that was on the way. I knew that I had bought this house, even though I had spent, at the time, which was nothing compared to today, but I spent a couple $100,000. But when I went over there was just sand and a little bit of cement. But for me, I knew the blessing was on the way, so I could be in love with those current circumstances, and I watched all the magic happen around. My pops would always say this, that your attitude determines your altitude, right? How can we up our attitude, right? How can we do that? By having joy. How can we have joy? By knowing that the blessing is coming. And so, just like with my daughter this morning, I knew the blessing was coming. I knew it. So no matter what was happening, but imagine if you knew that every single thing that you desire, right, was going to come into fruition. Imagine that, if you sat in that. How would your attitude change today? As opposed to wondering if you're going to get it. Verse 9 and 17, discreet truth is more valuable than viral lies. Man, this one hit me hard. right? I went through it a couple months ago, and I had gone through. Now, I never paid for the followers, anything like that. But a friend asked me, do you want me to turn something on? And I was like, yes. Now, I didn't pay for it, but I knew what he was doing, and I tried to turn my eyes from it. And what I found was that things took off, jumped off, and these things were happening. But I knew that they weren't true, right? And then I was just hit in the face with it. Is discreet truth is more valuable than viral lies. A little bit of good is way better than a lot of wrong, right? And so just do the right thing all the time, and the right thing will end up happening on his time, not on your time. In verse 10 and 25, I circled 25 because I wanted to read it to you. I've got the word here, and I wanted to read this to you, but an ounce of kindness carries more weight than a ton of lip service. Sit on that one for a second, chew on it, but I'm going to go to verse 25. Because in verse 25, it says, anxiety weighs the heart down, but a kind word cheers it up. How many of us in this holiday season have anxiety on our heart? How many of us in our work, we have anxiety on our relationships or whatever it is in our life? And what God is saying is, anxiety weighs the heart down, but a kind word cheers it up. And so an ounce of kindness carries more weight than a ton of lip service. Be kind to someone. What is kindness? Kindness is out of contribution, adding to every environment that you walk into, and being nice is just simply out of obligation. Choose kindness today, right now. Be kind. And one of the greatest examples of this is Mr. Roy Tuscany. And Roy Tuscany and the High Fives Foundation is a sponsor of the podcast. And so he helps spinal cord injury victims to experience extreme sports and go in and adapt and destroy all the barriers that are created because of the disability that they end up with. And so he's an unbelievable human, but he practices kindness at all costs. In verse 11, honor the dirt beneath your feet. Sometimes we see it as dirt. Other people see it as, oh my gosh, I wish I could have that. But just chasing other people's land or dirt is just chasing fantasies. Make sure that you lock in and honor the dirt beneath your feet. It will make it more fertile than anything, and the blessings will abound. And so I want to encourage you, no matter where you're at, look at your feet right now and honor that land, honor that dirt beneath your feet, and start to pour wisdom into it, which is the right use of knowledge. In verse 20, knowing the end of the story brings peace, and peace produces joy. When you know the end of the story, this is what my pops would always say, like, I know the end of the story, son. He's coming back. And, up to the last day, I was with my pops until 3 days before he passed. He was very peaceful. He had love in his heart. And, I was like, Pops, and I was crying, and I was so sad because this is my man. This is my best friend. And he was like, I know the end of the story, son. I've been working for this my whole entire life. And now I get to go, and I'm going to go and walk on streets of gold. I'm going to spend time with your mama, and I'm going to spend time with the Lord. And he knew what the end of the story was. And so it brought him peace, and that peace produced joy. That joy was not changing his circumstances, but the art of falling in love with those current circumstances. And that's why the magic happened. That's why to his dying day, his attitude was on the top level. So I love you, Pop. You're always in my heart, and you're the greatest in the world. So act accordingly, boy. In verse 24 and 27, as we finish up. Oh, actually, no, we got a couple more, but small amounts of right work will produce big crops. I used to think a lot of work, no matter what it was, will produce the crops. But what God is saying is diligence. It's right work. When you focus in, you have precise work. And how do we get that precise work? We just stay in communication with God. And then he'll tell us what to do. He'll tell us the right thing to do at the right time, and then the right things will turn out. It won't turn out on our time, on his time. But in verse 24 and 27, small amounts of right work will produce big crops. In verse number 26, blessings, when you understand the blessings are on the way, you will choose better friends. Imagine if you knew all the amazing things that were going to happen in your life. You would probably choose different friends, because sometimes we hang out with boneheads, but boneheads can't sustain at times the areas that you're going to go to in your life. And we have the tendency to wait until life gets better, and then we have to filter our friends. Imagine if you just knew that the blessing was on the way. You knew exactly what was going to happen within your life, all the desires that you have, the desires, not the wants, the desires. And those desires, it'll mean that it's in line with wisdom. So check your desires. That's how you'll determine between a desire and a want. But all the desires of your heart, he was the author of, and then he'll be the finisher of, and then he'll get the credit for it, and then you'll tell the story about him, and that's all he wants. So when you understand that the blessings are on the way, you'll choose better friends. It makes it pretty simple, and I wish I would have read that a lot earlier in my life. Actually, I've had the same friends since I was in 4th, 5th grade, so I've been very, very fortunate. I love you all. I love you, Nate. I love you, Rob. I love you, Pike, Alfred, DeAndre, Dave. Let me see, Johnny. Am I missing anybody? I probably am. James Dixon, Greg Reed. I have just some unbelievable friends in my life. Coach Gary, Craig, let's see, Cole, and my brother Brad. All these people are unbelievable. Dave, Dave Blackford. You guys know who you are. And I've just been blessed. But honestly, if you understand the blessings are on the way, you will choose better friends. And in verse 28, your dreams are on the way. The only way you will know that is by tapping into the source. Imagine if you knew that every single dream that you had, right, was on the way. But the only way that we'll know that is by tapping into the source, and it's got to be daily. And people say, like, could I do it yearly? Yeah, you can. But there's going to be a lot of time in between, and there's going to be a lot of things that can kind of deter you from it. But imagine if you just did it daily and you filled that up daily. You filled it up daily. It's like kind of almost charging your electric car. Don't wait till it goes all the way down. It's just a little bit every night, just a little bit every night, just a little bit every night. And then it won't ever be empty. We all do it to our phones. We all charge our phones every day. We plug that in, right, to make sure that we wake up with a full charge. Well, imagine if you plugged in to wisdom every single day. So when you woke up, then you would be full and you would be at 100% power. Your dreams are on the way. The only way you'll know that is by tapping into the source. You see, he's got all these things. He's like that. I think of him like if you took the joy that I felt this morning, waking up and be so excited. My face is hurting right now because I'm smiling so much because my daughter at 16 years old, I mean, she got to drive to school with her buddy. And in doing that, they're they got the top down, they got the little Starbucks, everything like that. And I'm just beaming while they're making me sit in the back of the little tiny car. But imagine that. God's okay with sitting in the back of the little tiny car, but you can multiply the feeling that I have in my heart by 1,000,000, quadbillion, trillion, whatever it is. And that's what God feels every single day because he knows all the blessings he has in store for you. I want to go back to the beginning because I want to ask you, have you ever bought something, a gift that you thought was perfect for somebody and you couldn't wait to give it to them? Imagine that God feels that every single moment of your life. He knows the gifts are on the way and he cannot wait to give them to you. He's the author and finisher of your desires. And all he wants to do is just spend time with you, because when he spends time with you, then you'll know beyond a shadow of a doubt that your blessing is on the way. And when you know that blessing's on the way, it'll fill you with peace because the anxiety will drop away, the depression will drop away, because you'll know that no matter what storm you're going through, no matter what valley you're in, that your blessing is on the way. That'll produce so much peace in your life, and that peace will create joy, and that joy will equal love, and you'll pour that out onto every single person, and that's how that's how people will know that he's in your heart. I want to thank every single one of you guys for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. and make sure that you comment, subscribe, like, do all the things that you need to do. Our Substack, you can click the link in the bio, check that out. The first 10 people who subscribe to our Substack, and there's a financial commitment to it. It's not very much. It's a very small financial commitment for the year, but the first 10 people are going to get blessed with the Vibe experience, which will include the Vibe Room in April 11th in Salt Lake City at the Edison House, which is going to be amazing. So hopefully you have a phenomenal day. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Tune into all the episodes and share them with all your friends. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never know, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk